This is Devin with Writing Daily, and every day we write daily. We talk about writing better, we talk about writing more often, we talk about writing better letters, better networking, better everything. If you're writing a novel, a feature article, your memoir, I'm Devin Galaudet, the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler, have an MFA in creative writing, as well as I am the author of the upcoming book, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. This is our first interview, and I got to be honest with you, I chose sort of like the best one that I could. The woman standing before you, sitting before you, is Morgana Ray, who is a talented writer, teacher, coach, mentor, and the wife of yours truly, somebody who is not only a talented writer, but has the ability to make sense out of the things that I write. She is my expert proofreader. And Morgana, thank you for being here and welcome.
My pleasure. Like, my job in life is, Devin says, let's do this. Let's go to this crazy part of the planet that you've never heard of. And I just say yes. And I have the greatest adventures of my life. So, whatever Devin wants to do is a good idea.
So today, this is sort of like a combination of introduce my wife. This is a combination of we're going to talk about writing. And here we go. So Morgana, when you write, what inspires you to write? How do you, because you write almost every day. You have a large audience, and you write every day. How do you decide what you're going to write about, and what's that look like?
Okay. Well, it's funny because I graduated from college just promising myself that I would never have to write again. I put so much pressure under myself, and it was I still have PTSD just thinking about it. And so it's a really big irony that my life revolves around writing. And that has a lot to do with discovering at some point in my life that, lo and behold, I'm an introvert. Who knew? I mean, Devin probably figured that out in 5 minutes, but it took me a good 40 years to figure out that I'm an introvert. And in terms of business, like having networking lunches where you pretend to be interested in each other because you're finagling to get a client, is exhausting for me and inefficient, and just not my way of getting clients or getting my message out. So I prefer to hide at home behind my computer screen. And what inspires me most, honestly, are real questions. Like, I just had this huge radio interview last night at 11 p.m. to an audience of millions. And my inbox is full of questions and stories and concerns, and I want to help people, and I have something to say. So to me, the easiest inspiration for me is a conversation. Like, I have a reason to write something. So other people are far more disciplined than I am. It's like I'm activated, like a switch goes on if somebody gives me a question. I had a magazine interview for like a cover story for a new Canadian magazine, and she sent me 20 questions, and I was on fire. But boy, am I slogging along writing my newest book, because, it's like somebody else's request lights me up, wakes me up, activates me. So the more I can set things up in the world to give me opportunities to answer questions, the more inspired I am.
So writing is about communicating to your audience. That's
people
the thing
I care about, even if I don't know who they are. My first book, and I'm an international best-selling author. Whoa, I didn't know what a big deal that was going to be. But I was in Bali 2 years ago with my goddess retreat members on the last day. We were visiting my witch doctor healer guy, and a woman who was also there waiting to see the doctor said, "Excuse me, are you Morgana Ray?" And she said, "I bought your book years ago and it changed my life." So there's this opportunity to like have a family all over the planet. But even that book was a response to a problem. Like, I want to solve a certain pain, and I had a problem to solve, which was to create a book to help people do it for themselves so that I didn't have to coach everybody on the planet. So that was the first book. So I think for me, what's easiest for me, because Devin did the way harder job of the whole memoir thing. I can't even imagine. Well, I don't think I remember my life well enough to write a memoir, but he just kind of had to do that in a vacuum, but he surrounded himself with a writing group. So again, he had some sort of relationship for the text. For me, I like to solve problems. So, and I think, Devin and I were talking about marketing before this, because that's another thing that I never imagined that I would become a marketing whiz. And I was like named by We Magazine one of the world's top women in e-commerce, which again is like, how did that happen? And when you're writing marketing for the people watching who have a product or a service or a book to sell, marketing is just, make it normal language and think about the problem that your reader has, whether it's a publisher or the kind of person you want to help with your product or service. Be a human and talk to the real problems and concerns of other human beings with honesty, because hallelujah, I think that our nonsense detectors are really, really well attuned now, and that's a good thing. So, when in doubt, under promise and give disclaimers and be honest, have integrity, and talk like a real person.
Thank you. So, and I already know the answer to this next question. Is there anything in particular that you do when you sit down to write? In other words, before you write a new article or a blog post or a newsletter to your audience, do you outline, or do you kind of wait for the right moment, or how does your process work? To get motivated and to get writing done?
I either have something to say or something I need to get done. Like, I've promised to promote something, or I've got a deadline on a program. That's like a really good reason to send out an email, or I haven't mailed for a long time. So I'm like every business coach's nightmare, which is really funny because I've been a very successful business coach for 23 years. But I am in neurolinguistic programming, there are two ways human beings relate to time. Some people are, I think it's called through time, and these people are really, really good at planning. They also tend to have really good memories. And it's a spectrum, and I think I'm a rather extreme case of in time, which is the opposite. I'm very in the moment. I'm very spontaneous. I'm the person you want in a jam when you need to improvise. I'm really not comfortable with calendars and false deadlines and pretend scarcity and stuff like that. So I just look for things to inspire me that relate to problems that are coming up with clients. Like when I see a pattern with a bunch of clients, they're talking about boundaries. They're talking about how to get clients. They're talking about love relationships. They're talking about, I just see the pattern, and that gets me all juiced up on that. And then I share my thoughts on that with my audience.
So obviously one of your strengths is engaging in your readership, or engaging with your readership. How do they do that? How do they track you down?
Well, okay, there's I have the benefit of having done this long enough to have some momentum and some word of mouth. I also have hundreds and hundreds of articles and videos. And that's, a thing that I would just say, baby steps, just, take imperfect action and just start putting stuff out there. And the first take, with all its mistakes and messiness, is, in my experience, usually the best, because the energy is the freshest and people want a real person, not a perfect person. At least that's what I want. So I attract people who are like me. So yeah, just a presence on the web, and you just keep writing and finding out what sticks. So I began they call it e-zine, my electronic newsletter, back in the Paleolithic era, when dinosaurs roamed the earth in 2002, November 2002, when it was like a big deal. Nobody was doing it. Everybody wanted to open it. And I was, oh my God, I would send out one a month, which is insane. You have to send it out once or twice a week, or they forget who you are by the next month. So when I changed that in 2005 and started mailing out 2 or 3 times a week, I was so apologetic. I got maybe one mean letter, and I just saw my list grow and grow and grow and grow, because it was more like having a conversation. And I just try to give tons and tons of content before I promote anything. So I think engagement is, here's a great tip. Like, one of the genius tips of all time that I got from he's become a good friend and longtime mentor who I saw on a stage back in 2005, Alex Mandosian. Devin, you know Alex. And way back then he was saying, post a pop-up on your website that says, what's your big question about your topic? And so for years, I had a pop-up on my website. I don't have it anymore. I probably should, because it's a great idea. But what I would say, what's your burning question about becoming a money magnet? And I got great questions. So I was finding out about the pain and the stories and the desires of real human beings in their language. I wasn't just like making up what I thought they wanted to know about. They were telling me, and I started answering those questions. And I've received so many thousands of responses over the years that it's like an unending source of material when I need to dig for it. Like, one of the simplest ideas and really hardest to stick to is, for those of you who want to sell anything, whether it's a book or yourself on a date, is it's really easy to sell what people want. And we kind of want to sell people what we want to sell them. But people want what they want. So find out what they want. And if you're able to give them what they want, then do so. If you aren't, send them to somebody else, because unhappy people will just drag you down, so don't contribute to their unhappiness. Find the people who want who want something that you can deliver, and your life will become so much easier. And you'll have a lot of happy people in your life.
Yeah, I actually know a guy, by the way, I love that, thank you. I know a writer who lives sort of like in the middle of the wilderness in Alaska. He doesn't look like it, but he's had to defend himself against bears and all kinds of incredible things like that. And he writes these books that are, like lilacs of the meadows between Juneau and Fairbanks. Some bizarre, very specific things that are, it's like the outdoorsman and then a super niche within that outdoorsman land. And what he's done is over the years, he's developed this list where he writes books only if the list approves of it. So when he starts coming up with an idea, he goes to them quite literally and says, hey, what do you think about X? And he knows that if he gets a certain percentage of the people to respond saying, hey, I'd love to see that book, then he knows to continue writing that book, because he already knows that his audience is already pre-engaged, which I think is a wonderful way to do things. So yeah, I think what you said is just wonderful. Do you have any other specific writing tips of how to do it or how to get it done? And then I have one last question.
Well, a writing tip that
Yeah.
I learned from Joel Roberts, who teaches this great class called Language of Influence. And I think this is true for anything you're writing, is use what he would call language of impact. It's not abstract. The more specific and concrete, tangible, language you can feel, stuff like gut churning, things that there are ways to mute feeling. You get very, very, very abstract. And that's how the Nazis could sell the final solution, something so beyond obscene, but make it sound really clean, was they got really, really abstract. But if you want to get a real reaction, then you get really, really specific. And that's when they would call Jews or gays vermin. And that vermin, I'm seeing a rat right now in my mind's eye. So use real language. The more specific, tell stories, share your embarrassing stuff, because your embarrassing stuff will connect to other people's embarrassing stuff. And like, one of the great secrets of life is these things that we carry around with so much shame and secrecy is actually what connects us with the rest of humanity, because everybody else has their shameful secret too. I mean, be safe, but be real. So I don't even know if I answered your question. I would also like to point out that my husband wrote a great letter to me on OkCupid. That's why we're together today, because honestly, his choice of headshot was abysmal. Thank goodness, because he might not have been single if he had better taste in photos. But he wrote a real killer awesome letter. You should probably do an episode on writing online dating
on dating profiles. Well, I'm so glad that worked out. I still don't know how to choose a picture. So anyway, and so for final question is, do you have sort of like a book that you love that you would just say, oh my gosh, I loved reading that book? And I'm just talking about something for fun. I'm not looking for a particular professional type of book. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, this was my favorite book of last year, Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle. Just swept me off my feet. Talk about a woman who bears all and makes you feel like you're there. And when she talks about feeling like, I don't know if she called it a beached whale as a small chubby kid, I was back in my, young chubby kid days too, with that body shame and that disappointment. And really just inspiring book. Loved it. I think all my women friends should read it, but they probably already have. It's a bestseller.
Good. And so if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
MorganaRae.com, which is Morgana Rae, RAE.com, because I haven't gotten around to, switching to my married name. And tons and tons of free material on my blog there. So just knock yourself out.
Great. My wife, thank you so much for joining me on our first ever interview for Writing Daily. And I'll see you like in 3 minutes. Mwah. All right. See you guys later. Thanks for joining us.